The Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy also tells us more about the sacraments. Here it speaks of the purpose of the sacraments as is that to sanctify, to build up the body of Christ, and finally to worship God. This is what the Constitution of on the Sacred Liturgy number 59 tells us. It says it sanctifies, it builds up the body of Christ, and it helps us and creates the opportunity for us to worship God. Going further, it says, because they are signs, they also instruct. They not only presuppose faith, but by words and objects, they also nourish, strengthen, and express that faith. From these definitions, we seem to have very significant words or concepts to reflect about. Here we see sign or symbol, if you like. We see Christ. We see grace. Here we see the church. And here we speak of sign and reality. That as human beings, we need signs and symbols to help us communicate and express what we cannot in words express. That's why you see, as you're traveling, you see the traffic signs. The traffic signs becomes a pointer, and it speaks to the people within that community. For instance, in Nigeria, we have the traffic signs, but I won't be reasonable if I come to the US and then I assume the traffic signs will mean the same as we have in Nigeria. I have to pay attention to what the signs that is before me is trying to communicate to me. So that's here we speak of the what when we gather, what that gathering in the name of Christ is trying to communicate to us in faith and in concrete way. Here also would like to warn ourselves that we don't begin to think only on the rituals or the signs and forget how we are drawn into the same the celebration through our active participation. Remember, it is the action of Christ and the church. Another thing to speak to the reality, the sign and the reality, which we celebrate when we gather to celebrate any of the sacraments, is to think of the heart as a symbol. When you see the heart, or when you think of the heart, you think of love. You think of other realities which can connote the elements of life, eternity, energy, and commitment. We speak of these things because we understand that the symbol has many meanings, often with different nuances for different people. So you can understand that when we gather to celebrate the sacrament, it's meaningful to us because we belong to that community that has the symbols in which we celebrate. The symbols speak to us as people who belong to a community that understand, appreciates, and live the symbol in which we gather to celebrate. That's why the celebration of the sacrament of the Eucharist wouldn't mean anything to people who are not Catholics. They may not understand that. You can see that even in the accounts of the as in the Acts of Apostles of the early apostles, how people misunderstood what they were gathering to celebrate. Here, again, speaking on this the sacrament, what is and why. We speak in our Catholic community, signs and symbols help us to articulate the mystery that is God and to communicate with God. So the signs and the reality in which we gather to celebrate in the sacraments help us to articulate who God is. and to help us to communicate with Him in concrete and real way. No longer as an abstract reality, but in a concrete and meaningful way to help us and draw us into that reality. That's why when we sprinkle holy water, we immediately remember our baptism. When on Ash Wednesday, when we come forward to receive the ash, we immediately recall in mind and conscious of our own mortality. When we see they call us, the liturgical call us in the church's liturgical calendar, it speaks to us of what the season represent. These are some of the things that make the science and the reality in which we celebrate specific to the community in which the symbol mean much to.